The whole team's there. And what makes this special is, one, it's such a good moment. Like the play is so good. Two, the emotion is insanely high. But three, okay, this is what you'll like is like for landscape. The light, it's all backlit.
Oh,
And it is so rare in sports to get emotion, the play, and good lighting. Because
eh,
normally, you're playing at night. So, okay, maybe you'll get something cool with the lights, but it's rare to get those three combinations.
Well, hey everyone. Welcome to episode 428 of F-Stop, Collaborate, and Listen. I'm your host, Matt Payne, and this week's episode was just an absolute blast. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Carrie Giordano, a powerhouse sports photographer who's been on the front lines capturing the World Series, the playoffs, and even the championship parade for the LA Dodgers. But Carrie's story goes way beyond baseball. With a background in landscape photography and a deep love for pre-visualization and preparation, she brings a thoughtful and intentional approach to the fast-paced, unpredictable world of professional sports. We talk about what it's like to shoot high-stakes games, how she balances photography with motherhood, and so much more. Whether you're a sports fan, a photographer curious about what it takes to shoot elite events, or a landscape photographer wondering how your skills might translate, this episode is packed with insight, laughter, and a ton of fun. All right, let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Carrie Giordano.
all right. Carrie Giordano, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. It's awesome to be here. I'm a longtime listener, so it's really an honor.
Yeah, I will never forget. This must have been like 5 or 6 years ago now. You mailed me a copy of Galen Rowell's Mountain Light, and I have been forever grateful.
Oh, that book is so good. I was like, you know what? I want to give back to him. I've learned so much from him. He has to have this book. And I know that book is incredible. Everyone listening needs to have it.
Yes, it's like mandatory reading.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, so Carrie, for people who aren't familiar with you and your awesome photography, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, my name's Carrie. I'm live in Los Angeles, California with my husband and three kids. And I'm from Ohio originally, which is where my love for photography started. Currently, I'm a team photographer for the Dodgers and the Rams. I do a lot of freelance. And I would still say, though, my greatest photography passion is actually landscape.
That's amazing. I feel like almost everyone listening is going to be super jealous of the fact that you get to photograph all these amazing sporting events, but we'll dive into it. But I'm guessing it's not as all, puppy dogs and ice cream as people might assume.
No, I mean, it's dangerous at times and stressful. And, I've been really blessed to work for good teams, but, there's some games you're in the burning sun and you're like, oh God, let this end. I don't care if we win or lose, just let it end. So yeah, no, it's amazing. And I'm grateful for what I do, but with everything, it's good and bad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you'd mentioned that your passion for photography started in Ohio, and I'd love for you to tell us about how that passion was sparked.
Yeah, well, growing up, my mom was an amateur photographer. So we had a darkroom in our house when I was really little. And I could still remember going in there and seeing the red light and the photos develop. And I always had a camera on me. She was really cool about just leaving her camera around and letting me play with it. So I was always the kid that photographed everything. And then when I was in high school, I took a class at the local college in black and white darkroom photography. And I just fell in love. I was so into it. I loved film, working with it, developing. I never once considered, oh, maybe I would do this as a career. It just wasn't even on my radar. So then a few years later, I moved to California and I was ready for some sunshine in my life, I guess. And one of my first jobs here was shooting kids baseball and softball. Little league. It was very competitive here, though. So I'd go all over California, Arizona, Nevada, and I got to see a lot, like travel. And at the time, I would shoot other things like shoot the coast, do some landscape shots. But it was such a grind. I would shoot all day Saturday in like 100-degree heat, then drive back to LA, oftentimes 3 hours, take my film to the lab, and then at 1 a.m, go back and pick up the prints. And then at 5 a.m, drive back to Fresno or Bakersfield or somewhere very far away and sell the photos all day. So I did that for a couple of years. And to tell you the truth, I got so burned out on photography that I completely stopped shooting. And so then years later, when digital started to come around, I got a little point and shoot and got back into it. And I was like, oh, this is cool. But, the photos were garbage. Looking back on those, I was like, oh, these are so good. And really, they're terrible. A couple of years after that, I was like, just sure what I was doing. Like, I didn't know. I tried different avenues. Like, I was like, oh, maybe I want to do real estate. Maybe I want to do this. But I kept going back to my camera and I love shooting. So I would go out with my mom all the time and we would just drive for hours and just with no end game, just would see something cool and go shoot it. So then I was like, go back to school for photography. And in LA, there's a school, Santa Monica College. It's just a local college and they have a really good photography program. So I started going there and, I was not serious about like portraiture. I was super shy to it. I was like, I don't want to learn any of that. I don't care about it. All of these things. The only thing I cared about was the darkroom. I'm like, I'm going to be a fine art, black and white, large format photographer. That was like my thing. And so I did it for a few years and I was so into it. But then I had to take a photojournalism class and I was shooting sports in it. And I was like, oh, I like this. This is cool. And I started working with the athletic department. And at the time I was actually working at Dodger Stadium. So I met the photographer there and he had been there like 30 years. And he had one of the huge lenses. And he, for an inning, while I was working my job, let me shoot the game. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And I just knew. It was like, yeah, I want to do this. And he completely discouraged me. He's like, no, you do not want to do this. There's no money in it. Sports are the worst. He's like, go shoot headshots. You'll make some real money. And I was like, what? I'm not going to go shoot headshots. But so no offense to anyone that shoots headshots. It's fine. It's
totally.
But so I was like, no, but I was still, focused on landscape, but I just kept getting called back to sports. So, I mean, that's pretty much like long story short, how I got into it. And, I just haven't looked back and I still love landscape so much. And that'll always be a passion and huge outlet for me. But I don't know that it'll ever be like a career path. It'll be more just like my release.
That's amazing. Yeah. One of the things I was really curious to ask you about is the survival of sports photography in this age of slow motion video and heavy video content. I feel like sporting events translate so well into video. So how do you feel like still photography still has a place in the world of sports?
Oh boy, that's something that I feel like I'm fighting for sometimes because there's times that it's just not being seen how important these photos are for kind of the legacy of these teams. However, where you can really argue it is, okay, everything, say you go to a game and you get a bobblehead. All of the graphics on that bobblehead are photos we shot. They're not coming from video. Okay, they're just photos. Okay, or, any of the little magazines they give at the stadium, those are all photos. If they're going to do a billboard, they're full of photos. So they still do need them. I mean, and then all of the archives. So I think that there's always going to be a place for photography, even though a lot of people are headed heavily video. I do think that this is going to cycle. I think that right now video is so cool, and it always will be because, with social media and different platforms, everyone loves to watch a video, but I think the photos will survive. I mean, they've survived this long, right? I think.
Totally.
Yeah, they have to, right? I mean, I hope so. If not, I guess I'll be doing more video.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting because I feel like both the mediums have a place, right? Like video can be super immersive in terms of like putting you in the situation or like sparking a memory of what it was like to be there or whatever. But then still photography, like it still has a much more powerful way of capturing a very singular moment in a way that's just timeless, I feel like.
Absolutely. If you can catch like a perfect play with emotion, it's going to tell that story so well in just a second And people now, like, if you do a video sometimes over 3 seconds, they fall off.
Right.
So if you can catch them in a second on a photo, it's in a way more powerful.
100%. Yeah. Well, so you've talked about your journey into sports photography. How have you woven in landscape photography throughout your journey in sports?
Yeah, I think, well, when I first started shooting, I was taking a lot of aspects of the wide angle landscape into the stadiums.
Okay.
So it would be so exciting to like walk around the stadium and find like cool angles to show this wide, grand stadium, and to find ways to like incorporate, the light's going to come through, these shafts of light will come through these aisles, So I loved that. But then as I started getting, a couple of years into it, I was like, okay, I love telephoto photography. So it was really cool to then take a longer lens, either like a 70 to 200 or even longer, and really zoom in on the seats or different aspects of the stadiums that are almost abstract in a way, and just create little things that I've done in landscape photography. So that was really cool, just to see that part of my landscape photography be incorporated. And also, one that most sports photographers aren't using are things like photo pills. So I'll see during the summer, anytime there's going to be a full moon, and I will find out like where that's coming up over the stadium, and I'll like map it out, and I'll like set my little timer during the game. So I know, I got to run up to the upper deck or wherever to catch that. Same with sunsets. So I think it's been really beneficial, and the same vice versa. For example, when you're shooting like a sunset or sunrise, okay, I don't know, how are you? Are you like, you seem like you'd be so calm and like, okay, I'm just going to like be calm and walk. How do you shoot it? Say you're in the golden hour. It just hits.
I've definitely transformed a little bit over the years. I think probably 2011 to 2017, like if there was an amazing sunset or sunrise and I was in the field, I was running everywhere. Like, I was running around trying to find interesting compositions. I feel like now I have a much more contemplative, slowed down approach to those situations, but I can still get super caught up in the moment and like super excited. And so I'm a little bit of both. I think that's what you were asking.
Yeah, definitely. Like, because there's moments where I feel like in a very excited, happy way, I could be kind of frantic out there. Like, ooh, we got to catch it, Or say there's some sort of wildlife that runs into the scene. As a sports photographer, I am really fast at getting that. I can like switch on a dime and catch that. I mean, not always, but I like to think sometimes. So that's good. But in those sunrises or sunsets, I feel like I am used to working quickly, but sort of in like a meditative type of way. Like I have to say for myself, like being out in the field, whether it's shooting sports or landscape, it's so meditative. Like if I'm in a good state, it's the best meditation I can do. Do you get that? Do you feel that
100%.
Yeah.
And I feel like baseball, in a way, is as far as a sporting event to photograph, I feel like it has the right pacing to like put you into that mindset as well.
You're so right, because I will say it's kind of hard when I'm shooting football to get in that mindset.
That would be hard.
I wouldn't call it meditative because you're running up and down the field every play.
Right.
But with baseball, you're just so focused in, and the ball moves so fast that you have to be like so ready for that next shot that you really do fall into that. So I'm usually a very quiet shooter. I'm to myself. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm focused on the game. I'm thinking like, what's going to happen next? Where am I going to shoot? What's my plan? So I love that part of it though.
Well, let's talk about some of the really amazing experiences you've had. So, I mean, obviously the Dodgers won the World Series this past year. So you've had some incredible opportunities to photograph the playoffs, the World Series, the championship parade for the Dodgers. Can you take us behind the scenes? Like, what was that entire experience like for you as a photographer?
Wow. This was the most insane and incredible year ever. It all really started when we got Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he's known around the world. So every day coming to the stadium, there were so many Japanese fans that they live and die for baseball. It's not like in the US. They're like all in, all baseball. So there was just this buzz of excitement all year round. Our stadium's packed, it fits 55,000 people, and we're continuously just jam-packed. So there's such a good energy in the stadium. But then, many years you think you're going to be good. And you do well, but you think you're going to go all the way. And then, they fall off and you lose. And I think one thing people don't ever think about is, okay, when your team loses and now your season's over, for most people, okay, that's your team, you're disappointed, but it'll go on. But for everyone that works in that sport, your job is over until the next year, unless you're
Right.
a full-time employee, which I'm not. So you can't plan anything. Like, you can't plan what you're going to do next week because you might be working or you may be done with your season. So it's kind of this weird sort of energy of anticipation. You don't know what's coming in your life. But then, you see we're doing really well. We could go all the way. And you'll be in a series and you get down to that last game and the energy is so high and you're so nervous. It's this crazy nervous energy. One, obviously you want to do the best and you want to do well at your job. You don't want to miss anything, but you just want to win so bad. You're all in at this point. And so when that last inning comes up and you're just waiting to see, are we going to win? Are we going to lose? It's a little weird because my job in the ninth inning, if we're about to win, I usually have a really long lens and another camera on me. So I have to as quick as I can, drop that long lens, jump down from the platform I'm on, race onto the field, try not to fall, and get as many shots as I can of the players. That's so nerve-wracking because also you have to make sure you're still shooting the pitcher's response to that last out and any of the players' response before you run. So it's so nerve-wracking, but so exciting at the same time. And you run out there on the field, everyone is so happy. They're celebrating, hugging. You're just trying to get a good angle on this all. And then after that, you go into the clubhouse and it's the greatest joy ever when you're celebrating that you're moving on to the next series. Most people will never be in a champagne celebration like this. I feel so lucky to have experienced this, but it's crazy. So midway through the game, you get one of your cameras wrapped up in basically waterproof gear. You have to tape things down. Definitely the first series celebration this year, I didn't tape my flash, and that was a huge mistake. And I got soaked in champagne and didn't work at all. So, I'm quickly trying to navigate to shoot in a super dark locker room. I still get photos. So, you're always kind of pressed in the moment to just go with what you have. But then you're in the locker room, and I don't know if you know this song by Kendrick Lamar, They Not Like Us.
Yeah, totally. He sung it at the Super Bowl, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the Dodgers theme song this year. So you would get in the locker room, they give kind of this pep talk, the coach or one of the players about as a team, how we're so united. And you're a player or something, you feel like you're part of it. It's so cool. And then this song starts blasting and they start popping champagne all around you. You're instantly soaked. And then what they'll do is they'll take bottles of beer and they'll throw it really hard across the room. Not the bottle, but the beer will go flying out and it'll hit you in the eye. And I'm telling you, it's blinding. Nothing hurts as bad as beer getting thrown into your eye. Amazing and terrible at the same time, but it's just honestly, it's so special. It's to be a part of something like that in that moment, it just feels like the greatest joy of your life. There's nowhere else you'd rather be. It's really incredible.
Yeah, leaning into that, I'd be curious if there was a particular moment or a photograph from your time covering the Dodgers that stands out to you as one of the most memorable or meaningful to you as a photographer.
It's funny because when you say the most memorable photograph, the instant thing that pops in my mind is a photograph from my first season, which doesn't even make sense, but it was this shot where Will Smith had hit a grand slam, a walk-off grand slam to win the game, and he's rounding third base, running to home. The whole team's at home plate, waiting for him with water that they're throwing up in the air. He, as soon as he gets to home plate, jumps in the air. There's water everywhere. The whole team's there. And what makes this special is, one, it's such a good moment. Like, the play is so good. Two, the emotion is insanely high. But three, okay, this is what you'll like is like for landscape. The light, it's all backlit. And it is so rare in sports to get emotion, the play, and good lighting. Because normally, you're playing at night. So, okay, maybe you'll get something cool with the lights, but it's rare to get those three combinations. So that probably stands out the most as a photo. However, okay, without a doubt, the highlight of my entire working career, and I would say, okay, this might be extreme. People will probably think I'm crazy, but maybe the top 10 moments of my life or my adult life.
No, I get it.
Okay, is the parade. Okay, there is nothing like being on a championship parade. So for me, this was like so special because I was there in 2020 when we went to the COVID World Series, and that was in Texas, and I was really removed from all the players. We never got a parade. So for years, players like Clayton Kershaw, Kike Hernandez, they've been talking about this parade. They want this championship parade. We're going to bring the parade to LA. But it hasn't happened. And I never really realized, like, what's so special about this parade, But when you're in this parade, so what they do is they take these double-decker buses, and you're on top. So they split the players into two buses. So I was on the bus with Clayton Kershaw, Kike Hernandez, Walker Buehler, and these guys were all there for the 2020 World Series and felt kind of like cheated that they didn't get their parade. And to see the emotion they had, like Clayton Kershaw, he's such a special man and such a kind family man, and he's there with his wife and his kids, and you can see the tears in his eyes during this whole parade. And it's just so touching because he's, will go down as like one of the greatest pitchers ever, but yet he's just so kind. And this is such a touching moment to him. And then, on the other side, you have Kike Hernandez that takes his shirt off and is like standing on top of the bus and like everyone's yelling for him. And then you have Walker Buehler on the other side who's bonging beers off the side of the bus, and then you're driving through the streets of LA and not even exaggerating, there's like hundreds of thousands of people out there on the light poles, like anywhere they could possibly be to see this parade, just crowds and crowds of people. And then in moments, there's confetti falling on you. It is such a special moment. You're honestly feeling all the joy and energy from the whole city of LA. It's like, there's nothing in my life I can really compare this to. However, as a photographer, it's not the easiest thing to shoot.
No.
Like, you would think you have so much to shoot, but you're on a bus that's moving. You're packed. I mean, the bus is packed with the players and their families. You're trying to like move around so you're getting all the players plus like the cool sights. It was really difficult. Like, looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I could have gotten better shots, I mean.
I hate to say this, but like, what's your lens choice?
Okay, so for that, I went with the 14 to 24 because I brought that and a little bit tighter of a lens, and the tighter of the lens, I wasn't getting anything. I was like cutting everyone off. Yeah. So I had wanted to do 2 camera bodies, and I brought a second camera body with me on there, but it was so packed in there that I was just getting tossed around on the drive that I was like, okay, I'm going to hit someone with one of these, so I need to go with one and just commit. But, is this all artists or all photographers where you look back and you're like, oh man, could have done so much better? Is that just
every time?
Right?
100%. Yeah. And it's funny, but that's like how we learn too, right? Like, you have an experience like that's very, it's like a foundational moment in your career and it's also new, right? It's novel. It's something you haven't necessarily done before. And so you're kind of going into it thinking like, well, this is my best thinking about how to pull this off. And then you learn from it, right? You're like, oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. And then like the next time you have the opportunity, it'll be a little bit better, right? So, I mean, for me, that's one of the coolest parts about photography is like it's constantly you're learning and growing and incorporating little things fixing things that you made mistakes on in the past. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that's so true. I think I will always be learning. And I just hope that I get another chance to photograph another parade. That would be amazing.
Right. Well, the way you guys are spending money, I don't think that'll be a problem.
I know, right? If we can't win with this team, I don't know. But that's you just never know when it comes down to the end. I mean, it looks good, but maybe it's not going to be.
I mean, I'm not even sure we're supposed to be talking because I'm a Padres fan. So like...
Well, the Padres series last year definitely was our hardest series. I didn't think we were going to get past the Padres. It wasn't looking good. So
yeah. That's so funny. Gosh, what was I going to ask you? Oh, so in sports photography, I feel like there's a lot of technical things that most people who are more accustomed to landscape or even portrait work might not be even thinking about in terms of like the speed of the entire process of image capture and also like getting the images to the place they need to be for publications. Could you talk a little bit about some of the technical hurdles that you have to overcome on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Well, I would say one, like you just have to be so proficient with your camera because when you're moving so fast in a game, and it's dark half the time, you better know how to use your camera in the dark for one, and you better know where all the buttons are. But I think most people kind of get to that place at some point, I think, but technically when I'm shooting, I connect to a wire, which sends photos to my editor and I pick which photos those are. So, that's kind of, once you get that down and you're set with it, that's easy. That's no problem. I set up remote cameras as well, which people might not know.
Yeah.
So I will say I'm planning to shoot on the third base side that day. I might set up a camera that's aimed at home plate or at first base. And so, those are really hit or miss. You're on Pocket Wizards, which are little radio receivers. And, those could be hit or miss in a stadium, whether they're going to fire when you want them to fire. Okay, so in all honesty, a lot of times I forget to turn it on. Because you don't really want it shooting the whole game necessarily sometimes. So when a big play happens, you want to turn it on. And a few times I have forgotten to turn it on, or I'll go to turn it on and it doesn't turn on fast enough. So I'm like, oh my gosh, why bother with that? But I have been able to get a couple amazing shots, like when Freddie Freeman got his grand slam in the first game of the World Series. I got a nice shot of him.
Insane.
Camera.
That was insane.
Oh my God. That was probably the most insane play moment I've ever seen. I don't know if I'll ever witness anything like it. It's kind of funny because like you could probably see right behind me, I have a picture of a shot that was like from the early 80s that my boss shot of just such a similar thing happening in a World Series game of a player hitting a walk-off home run. And then I've had that up there for like 2 years. So now I got to shoot like my own rendition of it, even better because it was a grand slam. It's like, wow, it's really cool. It's like, wow, did I just put that out there by hanging that photo? I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I wouldn't even have thought of using a remote camera, but that makes perfect sense in terms of like being in two places at the same time.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, a lot of times you get nothing from it. And then you're going through like thousands of images and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awful. But a lot of times you'll know in a game like, okay, there's not going to be anything on there. Or yeah, maybe there might be something. But it's a great way to cover like a lot of spots. Some of the big media outlets will put like 8 cameras up if it's a big game. 8 remote cameras in addition to having photographers there. It's crazy.
Hey everyone. Just a quick break from the episode to share something I'm genuinely excited about. After several years away, the Moab Photography Symposium is finally back. It's happening September 25th through 28th in Moab, Utah. And if you've never been to this event, it's something really special. intimate, inspiring, and rooted in one of the most stunning landscapes in the American Southwest. This year's speaker lineup is incredible. Colleen Minnick, Charlotte Gibb, Jennifer Renwick, David Kingham, Michael Gordon, Chuck Kimmerly, and Guy Tao. Some of the most thoughtful and creative voices in landscape photography today, and every single one of them have been guests right here on the podcast. Now, here's the important part. Registration is extremely limited and spots are running out quickly. This isn't a massive conference. It's intentionally small to foster connection, conversation, and community. So if that sounds like your kind of experience, don't wait. Head over to mps25.com. That's mps25.com to grab your spot. All right, let's get back to this week's conversation with Carrie Giordano.
And what are you shooting with?
I shoot with Nikon. So okay. I shoot with the Z9. So I'll have at least 2 of those on me. Sometimes I'll have a third body as well. And I always have like my go-to game lenses I'll have 70 to 200 and a 180 to 400 or just a set 400 millimeter. Mm-hmm. And then, depending on the day, I'll like try to be a little creative and I'll take like maybe a fisheye or maybe like a 50 1.8, you go out and shoot. Do you ever feel like, I'm going to grab this lens today. This feels good. I'm sure you do, right?
Oh, of course. Sometimes I'll purposely leave a lens that is more versatile home just to force me to try something that I don't usually use. And then oftentimes that can spark creativity or just like force you to get out of a rut or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll before the game starts, I do a lot of work. I'll shoot all pregame, which is all the events on the field before the game, but I'll also do like at least one walk around the stadium where I'm looking either for like creative, artistic shots, maybe with fans or without fans. And then I'll also just try to get the fans coming in, different things. So that could become, I don't know, a little redundant after a while when you're shooting the same things. But how I like to switch it up is, I'll just be like, I think the fisheye is going to get me something really good today. So, and it's just like whatever mood I'm in, but I do try to mix it up because there's a lot of games in baseball.
Yeah, I was going to say, in one given day, let's say it's a pretty action-packed game, how many photos would you take in total?
I would say at least 3,000.
Okay.
But if it's like, say, a World Series game, oh my gosh, I might take 1,500 before the game ever starts, so it just depends on how much I have to cover. But I would say in those World Series games, I was probably shooting like 5,000 shots.
No.
It's a lot.
And you're employed by the Dodgers organization directly? Is that correct? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then do they give you creative control, or are there like specific things that they like for certain games, or like, we don't want you to get X, Y, and Z, or like how much leeway do you have to pick and choose what you want to capture?
You know what? I have a lot of leeway, actually. It's fantastic. My boss, John Suhu, he's probably like one of the longest running MLB photographers. So he's been there for 41 years.
Wow,
and
okay.
So, he's so relaxed that he's like, okay, I'm going to shoot from third base today. So do you want to shoot from first base? But then I'll also have the option to roam. However, in pregame, it's like a little bit of a dance on the field between the two of us because like I'll look to him, he'll look to me, like to see who's going to cover what. Like I know I almost always shoot the national anthem, whoever's singing that. That's part of my job. Or if someone within the Dodgers organization asks me, hey, can you shoot these people? Then I'll shoot them. So there's certain things every day I know I need to cover, but it's very relaxed. If I see any owners, I try to shoot them. Any of the players' families, I'll shoot them. But it's really relaxed. Usually it's a little bit more strict when you're working for a team where they're like, okay, at this time you need to be here and then you need to be here. But with the Dodgers, it's I have a lot of creative freedom.
That's awesome. And then, you mentioned you also photograph for the Rams. So I'm guessing between spring training in baseball all the way through postseason in football, that doesn't exactly leave you with a lot of free time in terms of personal photography pursuits. Are you doing any landscape work on the side for your own personal enjoyment?
You know what? During baseball season, not a lot. However, at least in LA, that's not the best time to shoot anyways. I mean, I
Sure.
will go out and shoot a little bit. We get our little fog season that I try to go out in the early morning. But in the winter is really when I try to go. Or if, say, I'm taking a trip with my family, that's when I try to go. I used to be a lot better about, I would go for maybe like several days away with someone and shoot, just our own little like landscape workshop or whatever. But I
Yeah.
guess I don't know a lot of people that shoot landscape photography. So that's a little bit difficult. And then now I have a 2-year-old. So
Yeah, there you
before I
go.
had her, I also have a 10 and an 8-year-old, but before I had the 2-year-old, I was starting to get my freedom back. So I was going on like more photo trips. But now it's tough. How old is your son?
He's 17, so
Okay.
well, and I only have the one, but even when he was 2 to 6, like that's like you can't. It's hard to get away at that age, you know.
Yeah, it's tough. I try to get out when I can, but it is tough. It's really something where I would like to, in a couple years, get back to where, I can go for a couple days at a time and just get
Right.
away. I love hiking too. I know you do a lot of hiking and just explore different places and get out there to shoot because I do find to me it's almost therapeutic being in nature. Not almost, it absolutely is therapeutic for
100%.
me. Getting out there, shooting, just being in nature, not concerned about anything. And, not having any pressure of like, okay, I have to make this shot for this, or I have to get this. It's more just like this excitement I have within myself of like, wow, this is so beautiful. And I can't wait to photograph it. So I really know people that like landscape photography, but I think I do need to just like meet more people that are into it that are like, hey, yeah, let's go out. That's probably what I should
Well, I
do.
know there's several listeners from your area, so I'm sure they'll reach out.
Yeah, I know. So I love it. I guess I'm not getting as much time to shoot personally as I'd like, but
Yeah,
I know I'll
yeah.
get back to it. It's just a cycle in my life.
Are you worried at all about burnout in terms of like just getting sick and tired of picking the camera up?
Um, no, no, I'm not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have had moments like that,
Yeah.
but I think because of my sort of strange schedule where, from March until hopefully late October, because we did well, or even early November, I'm shooting a ton of baseball. I'll have like a week on, a week off.
Oh, okay.
So that's really great because I don't travel with the team usually. So I have a lot of freedom there where if I'm burnt out after my week, I get a week off. And
That
then
makes sense. Yes.
after a long baseball season, then I go into football, but it's only maybe once a week. So that's when I can get a little bit more creative and work on my own stuff. So I think actually working on the sports for my job and then doing the landscape just as my passion, that kind of keeps me so I don't really get burned out as much because I do have change. If I were shooting baseball all year round, I would have
Oh, yeah.
been burned out a long time ago.
Yeah, that'd be
I
hard.
mean, yeah, I mean, I think you probably know from playing baseball that some of those games can be really long.
Yeah, and I had my junior year of high school, I fractured my L5 vertebra.
Oh,
And so basically that entire season of baseball, I was in the dugout.
oh my goodness.
And like to like pass the time and not be completely bored, I actually was using a stopwatch and using algebra to estimate the speed of the pitchers.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
That's what
Oh
I
my
was
gosh,
doing
how
to keep
funny.
myself from just falling asleep in the dugout. Yeah,
Wow. See, if you had picked up a camera and started shooting the games, you might be in a different career path.
100%. That would have been way more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so as you know, a lot of our listeners are wildlife, nature, landscape photographers. What advice would you give to people like that who might be interested in trying their hand at sports photography?
Yeah, I would say if anyone's interested in sports photography, to get involved with, they have a friend or a relative that has a kid that's in Little League, right?
Right? Yep,
And
yep.
that they could go shoot those games. And if they don't, there's so many charities that work in sports. There's, the Special Olympics. There's marathons that are for charities. There's all sorts of charitable events that are based around sports. So they can easily work with those people. There's nowhere that's too small to start, I don't think, because I started with Little League and I realized, I do enjoy shooting sports. That was something I knew. And it does make you better because a lot of times, I'll still shoot my daughter's games, her softball games. And if you get something good in those games, sometimes it's tougher than in the pros because they're so good. But what you want to work on is you want to work on finding the light. And one thing that I see with a lot of new photographers where they go wrong is the backgrounds, where they set themselves to shoot. And sometimes you have no choice. You can only shoot from one spot, but a lot of times you can move around. Make sure there's not a trash can right behind the picture. Move a couple feet over so you have a cleaner background. Having a clean background is a huge difference in the photos. And also, I see some photographers I don't know if they're trying to get everything in focus or they're just afraid of not getting what they're shooting in focus. But, you really have to shoot wide open, on whatever lens you have. But I think if you start small and see if you like it, then you can kind of build your way up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember this must have been 2013. I had the Nikon D800 and I had bought
I love that camera.
Yeah, it's a great camera. And I had purchased the 300 f4 lens, which is actually a pretty cool lens. And I wanted to use it and practice with it. And one of my really good friends, her son played like competitive soccer. Like I think he was like 12 or something. And so I was like, can I just photograph your son's soccer games a little bit? And he was like, yeah, of course. And so I had a lot of fun photographing. And I didn't know much about soccer. I've always been an athlete. So like sports ball is pretty easy for me to understand pretty quickly. But it was a lot of fun trying to figure out the best moments to capture for soccer, because soccer is a little bit different animal as well.
It's so different. And in fact, shooting pro soccer is really difficult because the field is so big. So you have to be really patient and not want to like run to the other end every time because you're like, oh, come on, let it come back to me. But yeah, no, that's exactly what you do. And I was going to say no, really, if you're offering like free photography for them, so there's always a way to shoot. I think you just can't get caught up with like, oh, it's just Little League or.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of interesting parallels between sports photography and perhaps landscape and wildlife photography in terms of, in sports photography, it really is important to have a deep knowledge of the game so that you can anticipate key moments. Just like in landscape photography, you have to understand the light and like where the sun is and where the moon is and like how that interacts with your subjects. How much do you rely on intuition versus technical preparation when photographing sports?
I would say it's definitely a mix of both. So like I had said earlier, knowing your camera is number one, the most important, because shooting sports and doing well with it, it's not like it just comes easy. So if you don't know your camera, you're just setting yourself at a disadvantage. From there, knowing the sport is really important because, okay, I know baseball really well because I played softball, but sometimes I shoot sports that I don't know as well. And am I as good at it? I can hold my own, but no, I could be way better if I knew the sport. So for example, and you'll know this for sure, say I'm shooting by first base. I have to know not only what play could come, but it really helps if I know the players who are playing. For example, some pitchers,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
If there's someone on first, they love to throw back to first base to get that guy out. But other pitchers, they'll never throw back to first. So I could be watching the player on first base, waiting for him to dive head first back to first base all day long, and it's never going to happen because the pitcher will never throw back. So I'd be wasting my time. So a lot of it is knowing the game, but I do really try like, ooh, I think it's going to second. And because baseball, the ball moves so fast, in order to get some of these shots, you have to be focused on the person before the play. And it's just luck if the ball actually goes there. So I'll be thinking, ooh, I think it's going to second. I think it's going to second. And then usually it doesn't. But sometimes you get lucky and it does. And you're like, oh my God, I got it. Sometimes you can swing over and grab a play really quick, but there's some that you never would be that fast for. But with that, you have to be so careful because, last year I was hit by a line drive in the ribs and I was for almost a month, and I was watching, but it's so fast, and I had nowhere to go that, I see some photographers shooting sometimes and they're not paying any attention to the game. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to get hit. Like it's scary. So I think it's a combination of intuition and skill for sure.
Yeah. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper on that pre-visualization piece because I can imagine that you spend a lot of time kind of, for lack of a better term, like you're gambling on a moment that may or may not happen based on the situation in the game, the players involved, and therefore, like in order to be ready for that, you're focused in on a specific part of the field or a specific player. And I'm also guessing that you tend to miss some photos because of that gambling,
of course.
So to speak.
So many lost photos, I know. Honestly, I think my visualization. Well, I can't say that.
It's a hard one, I know.
I know, right? It starts much earlier on big games. So when I'm driving to the stadium on, say, a playoff game or opening day, I'm already visualizing what lenses am I going to use today? What do I want to do? Like, what do I want to capture? Is there something special happening? Where am I going to shoot that from? And if I really want to do good that day, I'll listen to a lot of times, actually, I've listened to your podcast to kind of get like artistic inspiration, or I'll listen to like classical music or something that I can really think through and envision what I'm going to do. There's called a flyover, and it's on big games like opening day where they have these jets fly over the stadium. And for some reason, this haunts me because you never know where they're coming from. And you're like, ooh, do I want to go with the really wide lens and get both teams and the flyover? Okay, I've tried that. Then the planes are so small. Okay, I'm going to use the telephoto lens and get them like right up the stadium. And then they come from like the wrong direction and you miss it. So I'm like thinking of all these things and what am I going to do and what happens with that? So I think in general it starts earlier, but I think maybe a little bit more what you're referring to in the actual game. I will think when, say, a batter's up, I'll think, okay, there's one out, there's two guys on base. I think this guy might steal, but what if he hits a home run right now? What am I going to do? Who am I going to focus on? Is it going to be the guy running the bases? Or is it going to be the person that hit and then I'll come back to that person? Or do I want to try to get, if I'm on the first base side, do I want to pan over and get the players in our dugout celebrating? So I'm thinking of all of that before the batter hits or if we're in the field, what's going on. So I am running through every play as though I'm like a coach or something, preparing where I'm going to aim. And that's why sometimes if I have like a friend next to me and there's like too much talking going on, I'm like, of course I like catching up with the people, but I'm like, I need to focus. I need to focus back to the game because I want to do well. So that's why during big games, especially, I'm like really quiet. But you really have to, for myself at least, I need to like strategize what I'm going to do because I know I'll miss it. I mean, there's so many shots missed and sometimes I do make the wrong choice. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to focus on the double play at second base. And then the ball gets hit to third base, this amazing play. And I completely missed the whole thing because I'm focused on second base.
Right.
And it's so frustrating. I'm like, oh, I wasn't thinking enough, So there's always so many shots missed. But I mean, we do that in landscape, right? You do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you can never get it all. So I guess you just have to be happy for what you do get. But I mean, some days you feel more on than others where you're like, wow, I really got the shots today. And other days you're like, oh my gosh, I was terrible.
Yep. So you spend a lot of time understanding the Dodgers players, obviously, because you're photographing them at home a lot. In terms of being ready for other teams and potential kind of, situations or understanding different mannerisms of different players, do you spend any time studying other teams as well?
A little bit, but not as much as I could, to tell you the
Gotcha.
truth. I work with another photographer that he tells me he studies the teams that are coming in,
Oh,
everything they're
wow.
going to
Yeah,
do, like the plays, all of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 3 kids and work. I don't know when I would ever do that, you know? So honestly, I could be way better about that, but mostly I'll look at like maybe who are the big players on the team because maybe I want to shoot them. But no, I could do better, but we only have so much time, right?
100%. I mean, that leads me to a line of questions I wanted to ask you about because you mentioned, you're a mom of 3 kids on top of being this awesome sports photographer.
Thank
How do
you.
you balance the demands of photography and family life?
I think that balance is a really funny word. It's like, I don't know if there's anything as full-time balance. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, that's not a thing. It's like the pendulum is always swinging.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's where I'm
for
at too. Yeah.
me, yeah, it's like, can we balance any that? Not all the time. One, I have a very supportive husband. I mean, I have to give him credit. 2, I have an awesome babysitter. So, luckily, I work mostly at night. So, there's just like a small gap between when my husband comes home and I leave. So, that's really nice. But say I'm working a week every day. Like I said, I probably have the next week off. So I know I probably am not going to see my kids a lot that one week. So I need to get up with them in the morning, spend a little time with them. If I can, pick them up from school before I have to leave for work. But then the next week, I need to devote a lot of time to them because I need to catch up for the last week.
Right.
And then I think I have these like note cards that I make every morning, like a little index card where I write everything I need to do. And then I love tearing it up at the end of the day. So,
I love that.
so to me, I need to do that because I have so many things on my mind that I need to get done. I would forget so much, so that really helps me just to stay organized and focused. And I think it's like, I'm not going to be perfect at everything. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to be a mom like 100% of the time, like 24 hours a day. I mean, I'm always a mom, but I'm not always available. I do work.
Right.
But I think I need to be like a little gracious with myself on that because you know what? I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like this, but prior to working for the Dodgers, I had this sense of like something was missing in my life. Okay, like I was happy, but I remember going to dinner with my husband so many times and being like, I just feel like I, have this greater purpose in life, but I don't know what it is. I should be doing something. And to be honest, I thought it was something much more charitable, not just shooting sports. I mean, it's not like I'm changing the world or something. But I knew that I wasn't fulfilling like something in my life. I could be doing more. And when I started shooting sports and specifically working for the Dodgers, what went away? It was like my personal fulfillment was so much more satisfied because I was doing something I loved. And it was just a change in my life, this shift. And I know that I might not be there 100% of the time for my kids because I'm working, but now that I'm fulfilled through my work, I know that I can be a million times better of a mom. I can show them what it's like to be passionate about something, to pursue that and to make that dream a reality and to then have a family and do that. And so for me, that was really important, I guess, to be doing something that I cared about. And, I think that there's tons of people out there that are in jobs they're not fulfilled in. And I certainly was one myself, and I'm in no way putting them down, but they might have fulfillment through something else. They might be in an activity or have a hobby or, be volunteering in another way that they're fulfilled. So they can do a job that's supporting their family or themselves, and that's fine. But for me, this is what I needed. I needed something to do that for me. So I don't know. I feel like it's balancing out in its weird sort of way. Do you get that?
No, I love what you just said about like showing your kids that there's things in your life that are important to you and that putting energy into those things isn't necessarily a sacrifice to them. It's actually showing them how to live a more purposeful and meaningful life of their own. And so often in this photography space, I hear from a lot of people that kind of see it as like an all or nothing situation where like they have kids and then they put the camera down for 10 years and then they pick it up again when the kid's out of the house kind of a thing. And I'm like, man, if I would have done that, I would have never even gotten into photography because my photography started like right after my son was born. And I was away from the house a lot during his first probably 6 or 7 years because I was climbing mountains and going on these photography adventures. But it wasn't like I was doing that 24/7, 365, right? Like I was still, attending to my responsibilities as a parent and as a spouse, but I was also taking time for myself. And so I think it's important to have that. It's not all or nothing one way or the other, right? I think showing people that you can do all of it and it all doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's a much healthier approach to living.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely agree with that. And don't you think for yourself that just for your mental space, because children obviously can be very stressful and mentally and physically taxing, don't you think that taking that time for yourself was like the best example you could show your son?
But also, if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you showing up for others, right?
Yeah, it's impossible.
So like for me, like taking these trips and going on these photography adventures with my friends, like I need that in order to show up as the best version of myself with my family too. So it's not black and white. It's,
I agree because I think there are so many people that sacrifice everything for their children. And look, I know you and myself too. We would do anything for our children, but I don't think that sacrificing our time to like tend to ourselves is beneficial to our children. Or, you see a lot of kids that their parents do that. They don't end up necessarily being the most independent, well-rounded kids.
Right. And the vice versa is true. You see people that go off and do their own thing and have nothing to do with their kids. And like, that's
Absolutely.
not good either.
Right. Yeah. It's a fine line, right? As most things are.
Yeah, 100%. So my next question is a little bit related to this because, you're a mom and you're a photographer. And what I've noticed is that the photography industry, and I'm guessing this is particularly true in sports as well, is pretty male dominated. I know landscape and nature, it's super male dominated. I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about have you faced any challenges as a woman in that field, and how have you navigated those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, the sports industry is male dominated. However, right now, in the past 10 years, I've seen more and more women coming into the industry as photographers and trainers, different parts. So I think it is changing, but I think it will probably always be male dominated, at least in male sports. I've seen the good and bad of it, to tell you the truth. When I first started, I would say I saw a lot more shady things, people, underhand comments, like, flirtatious type things. I feel like I see that less and less. But where I see really a lot of kind of like nasty male dominance, this is weird. I don't know why. And I apologize to any videographers out there, but I see it a lot from videographers, like the men who are, for the networks working the cameras, and they can be really nasty. I had one day specifically where I left crying because this guy was so nasty to me out of nowhere. And I had someone see it and they were like, "What's wrong with that guy? Like, we saw that whole thing. That was crazy." And I don't know where it's coming from, but I think for some reason, women in the industry are looked down upon, not by all of them, but by some of them. And I don't know. I guess I haven't been around long enough to understand what that's coming from. But, my way that I've found to deal with it now is to try to somewhat ignore them. I mean, I'm going to stand up for myself if need be. But honestly, I want to show them through my images. Like, look, I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. Like, I'm not here because I'm a woman. I'm here because I'm good at what I do. And that can be a little hard sometimes because as a photographer, it's hard to always be like, oh, I'm good. I'm more like, oh God, I messed up the game. I could be better. Oh, I should have done that better. Oh, these photos are no good. It's easy to doubt yourself, or have imposter syndrome. So when it comes to these moments when you're trying to stand up for yourself and you're like, no, I deserve to be here, I think you have to rise above the self-criticism so that you can stand up for yourself. And the other thing is, though, is that now I've seen in the past couple of years this sort of movement where companies want women shooters. Like specifically this past year, someone told me that their boss had told them they need more women shooting the NFL. And I was like, I like that. And I don't want to I don't want to be hired because I'm a woman. Okay. That's not what I want. But if there's an opportunity to be hired because I'm a woman, then so be it. I'll take that opportunity and I will show them that I'm not just a woman. I'm good at what I do. You know what I mean? I'm here for a reason. So I think that, for a long time they say, oh, men have more opportunities. So if the pendulum is swinging and women are going to have more opportunities because we're women, that I think that we need to take them and then show them, okay, we're here for a reason. We're good at it.
I got one more question for you around that. Okay. So for anyone who's like really, really, really wants to get into sports photography, like break into the industry, become a NFL or MLB photographer, what advice do you have for someone aspiring to be at that level in order, like, if they want to break in, what would you tell them?
I think that the best thing you can do is either get into high school or college sports by way of the athletic department. A lot of athletic departments, they need photos and they don't have anyone really to shoot. But the best thing you can do when you're there is not only build your portfolio, but network with the other photographers. Because at most high school, or maybe not as much high school, but for sure at college games, there's absolutely going to be professional photographers there. And those photographers typically have jobs that they can't always do. So if you were to go to them and say, hey, I'm a starting photographer, I'm looking for work. If you ever have a job that you need help with, I'd love to help you. I did a lot of free jobs in the beginning. And I also did a lot of jobs I didn't want to do to get in. Like for the Dodgers, I remember shooting several autograph sessions with old players that I had no interest in. Like I was in the middle of a mall and I was like, oh, it wasn't enjoyable, but I was like getting my foot in the door. So you need to kind of get your foot in the door somehow while you're building your portfolio. And I would say to that note, if you do find someone to get a job with, it doesn't matter if it's paid or unpaid, work your very hardest. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm not getting paid, I'm just going to, watch more. No, you need to show them how good you are or how helpful, how easy you are to work with so that they do hire you more. Because there's always jobs that, photographers get offered that they need to pass on to someone. That happens all the time. But I would say I received like so many emails from aspiring sports photographers. And it's interesting because a lot of them just say, hey, do you have a job for me? And that's definitely not the right way to go about it. Because if I had a job for someone, I would probably give it to someone I already had a relationship with. I'm not going to put my name out there for someone I don't even know. Yeah. So a better way of approaching it is just to say, hey, introduce yourself. Like I'm happy to look at people's portfolios or, give them some advice, but I'm not just going to hand out a job. It doesn't work like that. So that approach is probably never going to work, although it seems like a popular one.
I was going to say,
do people contact you like, hey, can I have a job?
Yeah, I've had people reach out to me like, are you hiring an assistant? I'm like, man, you're so out of touch with landscape photography. Like I can't even pay myself. Like, what are you talking about?
And I mean, sports photography is like not the best paying career as well, so it's like, you have to really love it.
Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned taking paid or unpaid work. And I feel like in photography, there's kind of this black and white notion that you should never work for free or you should never give your work away for free. And it sounds to me like everything else in photography, it depends. Like there's nuance involved.
Absolutely. You know what? it's funny that you say that because I do agree with that on things. Like there's things I wanted to go do and I wanted to go shoot, but I was like, I'm not going to go work for free because that sets a really bad precedence across the whole board. But then when you're just starting, and this is a tricky one too, you're right.
It is.
It's actually a really tricky subject because as a professional working, if all these young photographers are coming in and setting this super low rates, that's not good for the higher professionals either, to drag the industry down with a low rate. I'm more referring like when you're just getting started with your portfolio and you're reaching out to a photographer to help out, to assist them. I assisted a few photographers where I didn't get paid, but I was able to see what they did. I learned very quickly I didn't want to do wedding photography, by doing that. So you can also sort of see which direction you want to go. But I'm more saying like, say you're going to go shoot Little League. That might not be paid, but okay, say you're selling. Okay, so now Matt, you sell these amazing prints, right? When you first went out to shoot landscape, was someone paying you for that, for all those prints you made?
No, in fact, I never, when I first started, I had zero professional or monetary ambitions. Like, it was all just, I wanted to capture the places I was in. And so,
exactly.
It had nothing to do with making money ever, really.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of that. I guess when I say free too, I worked for a wire service for a while. And that basically, I did have a contract where I should be getting paid for my images that sell. But I was basically working for free. It was such, low paid sales that, but I had access to all the professional sports. So that was a really good way to get in because technically I was a paid photographer, although it was not good. It was like an industry standard, I suppose. And I was able to network with so many people and put myself out there as a professional photographer. So that was pretty huge for me.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the aspects of professional sporting events that has always intimidated me is that access piece. You can't just show up with a camera at the stadium and say, I'm going to take some pictures. Is that cool? So what does that look like for someone who really wants to do it but has no idea how to even gain access to the field?
Yeah, that's really tough. That's why if you can work with an athletic director of a college or a high school, they will give you all the access. That's what I did. I worked with the athletic director. He gave me a pass that got me in all the sports, and that was that. However, if you want to get into professional sports, that's going to be a lot tougher. I mean, even at Dodger Stadium, since Shohei came, photographers that have been shooting there for years are having trouble getting access. So it is in some venues much harder. But say you have a team let's just mention your home team, the Rockies. Maybe it might be easier there.
I claim no affiliation with the Colorado Rockies. That's funny because we were joking before we recorded that I said no self-respecting Coloradan is a Colorado's Rockies fan, and I stand by that.
But it would be amazing to shoot in the stadium, right?
For sure.
So to get in, honestly, you're going to need to contact the PR department. And the PR department, they're going to want to see that these photos are not for your portfolio, that they're for some sort of publication. So what you might do is say, and I'm just completely making this up, say there's a magazine called, it might be an online magazine, Baseball News Today, I don't know, something like that.
Sure.
So you reach out to them and you say, hey, I'm a local photographer. I would love to shoot this. Can you gain me access? Or a lot of times there's a way to apply online for a credential. Like say there's a big golf event, like a professional golf event. You can apply online for a credential, but you need to tell them what media outlet you're working for. So then you touch base with the media outlet, say, hey, I'd like to use you to apply for this credential. Can we work together? And that worked for me a few times. I was able to get into some cool events. I don't honestly know if that would work for MLB or, the NFL. I think it would be a little bit tougher because those credentials are limited. But I think it could get you into a lot of sporting events. And then from there, if you were to get in with, say, Getty or an AP, one of the wire services, I think that would be your way to go. There's a lot of different avenues, but I think that's one way.
I was curious, do you think, Like if someone has a substantial social media following, does that give them
Yeah.
any special access?
Yeah, it does. I've
Okay.
definitely seen people that just come in based off of their following and they use that. Of course, if it's like a sports following, that helps. You know,
I was gonna say, well, I'm done. That doesn't help me.
you no, Matt, I get in at the Rockies Stadium. They may become your favorite team.
Man, I don't. No, we're not gonna go there. Nope.
Okay, but that stadium is supposed to have some of the best light in all of baseball. So, for what a pro you are with that.
They do get some really cool sunsets there, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I bet you could do some really cool work with that stadium.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever done any drone work with sports?
You know what? I have shot the stadium with my drone when they're not playing.
Okay, yeah.
And then we do like a polar plunge every year. Chris Taylor does like a charity polar plunge. So I always will shoot the players with my drone, like running into the water and then hit some
nice.
So a little bit, but it's very strict.
Right.
Like
100%.
you have to jump through so many hoops to shoot with a drone that the Dodgers are really strict about it. I'm hoping that opens up a little because as of now, like they're more open to going up in a helicopter than say using a drone.
Which seems more disruptive to the game, but
yeah, right. So we'll see. We'll see in the future. I'm hoping to kind of like inch my way in with that.
I love that. All right. My last question, who do you recommend for the podcast? Who are 3 photographers that we need to know about?
Okay. So I am going to recommend 2 that you've never had. So Tom Mackey, when I was like starting in landscape photography, I had some of his books and, you know, I had the pleasure to meet him and get to know him and get to shoot with him before. And he has been doing landscape photography since it could be the 80s, but he has been able to make a constant career of it. And he's very natural in his work. You know, he's not doing any crazy post-processing, but, you know, he's just getting to the locations. He's really smart. He knows so much about photography. And just to kind of have gone from like the film days through to the digital and, you know, kept a career in landscape photography going, I think he would have a lot of valuable insights. Don Smith is someone that I went on a workshop with once. He was a sports photographer turned landscape photographer. Really nice guy. So he has just like a lot of knowledge. And then being a sports photographer, I have to throw out a sports photographer. And I would say Ashley Landis. She is such an incredible photographer. Just shooting alongside with her, she could shoot any sport. She always shoots all of the Olympics. She does a lot of entertainment and news photography, but she's just incredible. I don't even know. It's like you go to a game with her and she always sees things that other people don't see.
That's awesome. Well, Carrie, this has been so much fun. I can't believe we're already like
so great.
So far into this, but man, I can't thank you enough for joining me. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a long time. And then of course with the Dodgers winning the World Series is like, oh, what a perfect opportunity. So thank you so much.
Oh, you know, I appreciate it so much, Matt. You were so fun to talk to. And, you know, I hope that the listeners aren't bored by sports. But honestly, I think, you know, I don't even like watching sports on TV. I'm not like a diehard sports fan. So I think landscape photographers should give it a chance. I think they might like it more than they realize.
I agree. Cool.
Well, thanks for joining me for another super fun episode. Huge shout out to Carrie for such a great and insightful conversation. What an absolute blast that was. And how cool is this? Carrie was recently featured in the March 2025 edition of Time for Kids magazine. Congratulations. Here's a quick reminder for y'all. The Moab Photography Symposium is back this fall, September 25th through the 28th in Moab, Utah. Spots are limited and filling up fast. So if you're interested, please head over to mps25.com and lock in your registration today. And lastly, a big thank you to our newest Patreon supporters, Ken Bertram, as well as Torsten Pohl, who I recently had the pleasure of featuring in an article for On Landscape magazine. Your support truly helps keep this show going. Thank you. Thanks for stopping in, collaborating with us, and listening. See you next week.